the invisible discomfort. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling off, but you could not explain why? Nothing obvious happened. No argument, no tension that could be clearly pointed out, no harsh words that would justify the weight you suddenly feel in your chest, and yet something shifted inside you, something subtle, almost invisible, but real enough to disturb your peace. You try to ignore it. You tell yourself it is nothing. Maybe you are just tired. Maybe you are overthinking. That is what most people do. They silence that inner signal because it does not come with clear evidence. But the truth is, not everything that affects you will announce itself loudly. Some of the most destructive influences in your life operate in silence. That strange discomfort you feel is not weakness. It is awareness trying to reach you. There are people who do not attack you directly. They do not raise their voice. They do not openly disrespect you. In fact, they often appear supportive, attentive, even kind. But beneath that surface, something else is happening. They are slowly altering the way you see yourself. They are planting doubt where there used to be certainty. They are creating confusion where there used to be clarity. And because this process is gradual, you do not notice it happening. Day by day, interaction by interaction, something inside you begins to change. You start questioning your own decisions more than you used to. You hesitate where you once acted with confidence. You feel the need to explain yourself more, to justify your feelings, to seek validation for things that never required validation before. This is how it begins. Carl Jung once taught that what remains unconscious does not disappear. It controls you from the shadows. And what you refuse to see clearly in others often finds a way to influence you deeply. The danger is not always in what is obvious. The danger is in what blends into your normal life so well that you stop questioning it. That is why these situations are so difficult to recognize. You are not dealing with an enemy. You are dealing with familiarity, with proximity, with people who are part of your routine, your conversations, your emotional world. And here is what makes it even more unsettling. You trust them. You open up to them. You share your thoughts, your plans, your vulnerabilities. You allow their words to shape how you interpret your own experiences. And without realizing it, you begin to carry something that does not belong to you. Doubt that was not originally yours. Guilt that was quietly placed on your shoulders. A sense of inadequacy that was slowly built through repeated, subtle interactions. At some point, you stop recognizing the version of yourself you used to be. You feel more tired than usual. Not physically, but mentally. Conversations that should feel neutral or even positive leave you drained. Decisions that used to be simple now feel heavy. And deep down, there is a quiet question forming, one that you try not to confront. What is happening to me? The answer is not always found within you. Sometimes it is found around you. Because there are people who do not destroy your life with chaos. They do it with influence, with subtle pressure, with small, almost unnoticeable shifts that accumulate over time until the damage is already done. And the most dangerous part of all of this is that you rarely see it while it is happening. You only feel the effects. So let me ask you something, and this time, do not rush to answer. What if the reason you feel disconnected, uncertain, or emotionally exhausted is not because you are lost, but because someone close to you is quietly leading you away from who you truly are? What if the confusion you feel is not yours, but something that has been projected onto you over time? And what if the people you trust the most are the very ones shaping your reality in ways you have never questioned? If that thought creates even a small sense of discomfort inside you, then you are beginning to see what most people spend years ignoring. And once you start seeing it, you cannot unsee it. The paradox of proximity. The greatest threat to your peace will rarely come from those who openly oppose you. It comes from those who stand close enough to influence how you think, how you feel, and how you interpret reality. This is the paradox most people never question. They are trained to defend themselves from enemies, but they lower their guard around those they call friends, family, or partners. And that is where the real danger begins. You see, distance creates clarity. When someone is far from you, their intentions are easier to observe. But proximity blurs perception. The closer someone gets, the more you stop analyzing and start trusting. You replace awareness with familiarity. You stop questioning patterns because the presence feels normal. And normal is where manipulation hides best. There is a silent exchange happening in every close relationship, not just of words, but of energy, perception, and psychological influence. You are not only sharing moments with people, you are sharing mental space. And whoever occupies that space consistently begins to shape it. This is not always intentional. That is what makes it even more dangerous. Carl Jung explained that much of human behavior is driven by what remains unconscious. People project their unresolved conflicts, their insecurities, their frustrations onto others without realizing it. And when you are close to someone, you become the nearest surface for that projection. You begin to carry what does not belong to you. At first, it is subtle, a comment that makes you question yourself, a reaction that makes you feel slightly inadequate, a tone that leaves you uncertain about how you were perceived. Nothing extreme, nothing that would justify confrontation, but enough to create a shift. Then it repeats. And repetition is what transforms influence into reality. Over time, you start adjusting. You choose your words more carefully around that person. You avoid certain topics. You modify your behavior to maintain harmony. And without noticing, you are no longer acting from authenticity. You are reacting to a dynamic that has quietly taken control. This is how proximity becomes power. The person does not need to dominate you. They only need to be present often enough to shape your internal dialogue. Because the more you are exposed to a certain pattern, the more your mind begins to accept it as truth. You start to internalize their perspective. You begin to see yourself through their reactions. You measure your value based on their responses. You question your instincts when they contradict the subtle signals you receive from them. And slowly, your inner compass begins to lose its precision. Not because you are weak, but because you are influenced. This is why not every close connection is healthy, even if it feels familiar. Familiarity is not proof of safety. In many cases, it is the very reason you fail to recognize what is happening. You assume that because someone has been in your life for a long time, their presence must be beneficial. But time does not purify influence. It only deepens it. And here is where most people make a critical mistake. They look for obvious signs of harm. They expect toxicity to be loud, aggressive, undeniable. But the most destructive patterns are quiet. They do not force themselves on you. They integrate into your routine, your habits, your thoughts. They become part of your normal. So you stop questioning them. And when you stop questioning, you start accepting. Think about it carefully. How many times have you dismissed a feeling just because the person involved was someone you trust? How many times have you ignored your own discomfort because you believed that person could not possibly be the source of it? This is the paradox. The closer someone is, the less you see them clearly. And the less you see them clearly, the more power they have to shape you without resistance. Now consider this. If proximity can distort your perception, then how much of what you believe about yourself is truly yours? And how much of it has been influenced by those around you? That question is uncomfortable for a reason. Because once you begin to explore it, you will start to notice patterns you can no longer ignore. And what comes next will make those patterns impossible to deny. The hidden mechanism, how toxicity takes hold. What you are about to understand changes everything. Because the real danger is not the person itself, but the mechanism operating behind the interaction. Toxic influence does not begin with control. It begins with subtle permission. And most of that permission is given unconsciously. No one wakes up one day and decides to lose their clarity, their confidence, or their sense of identity. This process is gradual, almost imperceptible. It is built through small moments that seem insignificant when isolated, but powerful when repeated. It starts with a slight distortion, a comment that sounds harmless, but leaves a residue, a reaction that feels off, but is easy to dismiss, a shift in tone that creates a brief sense of discomfort. These moments do not demand confrontation, so you let them pass, but your mind registers them, and what is repeated is absorbed. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious is not passive. It is constantly recording, interpreting, and shaping behavior beneath the surface. When you are repeatedly exposed to subtle negative patterns, your mind begins to adapt to them without your awareness. This is where the first mechanism takes place: subtle manipulation. It is not direct. It does not come as an order or an attack. It comes as suggestion, implication, tone. The person does not tell you that you are wrong. They make you feel like you might be. They do not invalidate you openly. They respond in ways that make you question your own emotional reactions. And because nothing is explicit, you cannot easily defend yourself. Then comes the second mechanism: inversion of guilt. This is where your perception begins to turn against you. Situations that should be clear become confusing. You start wondering if you misunderstood, if you overreacted, if you are being too sensitive. You begin to assume responsibility for discomfort that was not created by you. You apologize when you should be questioning. You adjust when you should be observing. And each time you do this, you reinforce the pattern. Over time, this leads to the third mechanism: progressive emotional drain. This is where the damage becomes tangible. You start feeling tired after interactions that should not require effort. Your mental energy decreases, not because of what is being said, but because of what is being processed internally. You are constantly analyzing, filtering, adapting. You are no longer present, you are managing. And that is exhausting. But here is the part most people fail to recognize. This does not happen in one moment. It happens through accumulation. One interaction does not define it. A pattern does. This is why you do not see it immediately. Your mind normalizes repetition. What felt strange at first becomes familiar. What created discomfort becomes something you expect. And once expectation is established, resistance disappears. You stop reacting. You start adapting. And adaptation, in this context, is the silent acceptance of something that is slowly diminishing you. This is how toxicity installs itself. Not through force, but through gradual integration into your psychological environment. It becomes part of how you interpret situations, how you respond to people, how you see yourself. You do not feel attacked, you feel changed. And because there is no clear moment of impact, you struggle to identify the source. You look inward for answers, assuming the problem must be you. You try to fix yourself, to improve, to adjust even more. But the more you adjust, the more space the pattern occupies, until one day something inside you feels different and you cannot trace when it began. Now understand this clearly. You do not fail to see it because you lack intelligence. You fail to see it because it was never meant to be obvious. It was designed, consciously or unconsciously, to bypass your awareness, and that is why it is so effective. Because by the time you begin to question it, it has already influenced how you think. And what you are about to see next will make that influence impossible to ignore. The 9 signs, but with a different approach. The first sign does not appear as a problem. It appears as a thought. You begin to doubt yourself without a clear reason. Decisions that once felt natural now require excessive reflection. You question your words after speaking. You replay conversations in your mind, searching for mistakes that may not even exist. This is not growth. This is the erosion of inner certainty. And it does not come from within. It is learned through repeated exposure to someone who subtly destabilizes your confidence. Then something deeper happens. You start feeling guilty without a defined cause. Even when you know you did nothing wrong, there is a weight inside you. A sense that you might have failed someone, disappointed someone, misunderstood something. This is the second signal. Guilt that has no clear origin is rarely yours. It is often the result of emotional inversion, where another person's discomfort is silently transferred onto you. As this pattern continues, your perception of your own value begins to shrink. Achievements that once made you proud now feel insignificant. You share something positive, and the reaction you receive is neutral, dismissive, or subtly diminishing. Over time, you stop celebrating yourself. You begin to measure your worth based on reactions instead of truth. This is the third sign. Your sense of value is no longer internal. It has been outsourced. Then comes the exhaustion, not physical, but emotional. You spend time with this person, and nothing dramatic happens. Yet when it ends, you feel drained. Your mind feels heavy. Your energy feels reduced. This is the fourth signal. It is not about what was said. It is about what was processed. You were not simply present. You were adapting, filtering, and managing your responses in real time. At this point, the invalidation becomes more noticeable but still subtle. You express how you feel, and instead of being understood, your emotions are minimized, redirected, or questioned. You are told you are overreacting, misinterpreting, or being too sensitive, but not directly. It is done in a way that sounds reasonable. This is the fifth sign. Your emotional reality is being reshaped, and you are being trained to distrust your own feelings. As a consequence, you begin avoiding conflict, even when something clearly bothers you. You feel the need to maintain peace at all costs. You choose silence over expression, not because you agree, but because you anticipate resistance, discomfort, or subtle consequences. This is the sixth signal. You are no longer acting from truth. You are acting from anticipation. Then your behavior starts to change in ways you do not immediately recognize. You adjust how you speak, what you share, how you react. You monitor yourself. You become more careful, more restrained, more controlled. Not out of discipline, but out of fear of triggering a reaction. This is the seventh sign. You are no longer being yourself. You are performing a version of yourself that feels safer in that environment. With time, this transformation becomes internalized. You look back and realize something is missing. The person you used to be feels distant. Your spontaneity is reduced. Your clarity is weaker. Your confidence is inconsistent. This is the eighth sign. You did not lose yourself suddenly. You were gradually separated from who you were. And then comes the final signal, the one most people recognize but choose to ignore. Deep down, you already know. There is a quiet awareness inside you that has been trying to surface for a long time. It appears in moments of silence, in brief flashes of clarity, in that same discomfort you felt in the beginning. You sense that something is not right. You feel that this dynamic is affecting you, but you push it away. You justify. You rationalize. You tell yourself it is not that serious, that you might be exaggerating, that things will improve. This is the ninth sign. You see it, but you refuse to confront it. And this is where the real danger lies. Not in the presence of the pattern, but in your willingness to ignore it. Because once you recognize something and choose not to act, you are no longer unaware. You are participating. And what you are about to understand next will challenge you in a way most people avoid for their entire lives. Jung's mirror. The truth nobody wants to hear. At this point, it is easy to focus on the other person, to identify their behavior, their patterns, their influence. But there is a deeper layer that cannot be ignored. Because what you tolerate does not only reveal who they are, it reveals something about you. Carl Jung made this clear in his teachings on the shadow. What remains unexamined within you does not disappear. It shapes your choices, your relationships, and the limits you unconsciously accept. The external situation may expose the pattern, but the internal structure sustains it. This is where the mirror turns. Why do you stay in a dynamic that slowly diminishes you? Why do you ignore signals that your mind has been sending you repeatedly? Why does discomfort not lead to distance, but to adaptation? These are not easy questions, and that is precisely why most people avoid them. There is always a reason beneath the surface. Sometimes it is the fear of losing connection. The idea of distance feels heavier than the cost of staying. You tell yourself that maintaining the relationship is worth the internal tension. But what you are really protecting is not the relationship. It is the fear of being alone. In other cases, it is the need for validation. When someone close to you influences how you see yourself, you begin to depend on their responses to feel stable. Even when those responses are inconsistent or diminishing, you continue seeking them. Because part of you believes that if you can gain their approval, you will restore your sense of value. This creates a cycle. You are affected by their influence, and then you seek from them the confirmation needed to recover. But the source of the imbalance cannot become the source of your stability. So the cycle continues, and your awareness becomes clouded. There is also the element of familiarity. What you have experienced repeatedly begins to feel normal, even when it is not healthy. If you have been exposed to certain emotional patterns for a long time, your mind stops identifying them as threats. It recognizes them as part of your reality, and what feels familiar rarely triggers immediate rejection. Jung understood that the shadow is not only made of negative traits, it is made of everything you refuse to confront about yourself. Your fears, your insecurities, your unresolved needs. And when these elements are not brought into awareness, they seek expression through your choices, including the people you allow to stay close. So when you tolerate behavior that diminishes you, there is always an internal permission behind it. Not because you consciously choose it, but because something within you has not yet been resolved. This is the truth most people resist. It is easier to identify the external influence than to question the internal acceptance. It is easier to say someone is toxic than to ask why their presence continues to have access to your life. But growth begins where avoidance ends. You cannot change what you refuse to see, and you cannot break a pattern that you are still justifying. So take a moment and face this without distortion. What are you afraid of losing if you create distance? What part of you still seeks approval from someone who weakens you? What discomfort are you avoiding by staying in a situation that slowly drains you? These questions are not meant to accuse you. They are meant to free you. Because the moment you understand the internal reason, you regain power over the external situation. And that is the turning point. Because once you see both sides clearly, the influence loses its invisibility. And what comes next will determine whether you continue the pattern or finally break it. The silent warning, the cost of inaction. At this stage, you already see more than most people allow themselves to see. You recognize the patterns. You feel the weight of what has been happening. But awareness alone is not enough, because there is a cost to seeing and choosing not to act. And that cost is not immediate. That is what makes it dangerous. It accumulates. You do not wake up one day completely lost. You become lost through small concessions repeated over time. Each moment you ignore your intuition. Each time you silence your discomfort. Each time you adjust yourself to maintain a dynamic that weakens you. Something inside you gives up ground. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. This is how identity begins to erode. You start losing clarity. Not because you lack intelligence, but because your internal signals are no longer trusted. When you repeatedly override what you feel, your mind learns to doubt its own guidance. Decisions become heavier. Choices become uncertain. You hesitate where you once acted with precision, and hesitation, when constant, becomes paralysis. Then anxiety begins to take shape, not always as fear, but as tension, a constant state of alertness. You think more than necessary. You analyze more than required. Your mind tries to compensate for the lack of internal stability by controlling every detail. But control is not clarity. It is a response to confusion. As this continues, your decisions start to reflect the influence you have been absorbing. You begin choosing what feels safe within that dynamic instead of what is true for you. You avoid risks that could lead to growth because they might disrupt the fragile balance you have created. This is how your path becomes limited, not by external barriers, but by internal restriction. Over time, this affects how you see your own potential. You stop aiming as high as you once did. You lower expectations, not consciously, but gradually. You adapt your vision of the future to match the version of yourself that has been shaped by this environment. And this is where stagnation takes hold. Your life does not collapse. It slows down. It becomes smaller, less expressive, less aligned, less authentic. You may still function, still move forward, still achieve things, but something essential is missing. You are no longer fully present in your own life. And here is the truth most people realize too late. It is not the presence of toxic influence that defines the outcome. It is the duration of your exposure to it. The longer you remain without acting, the deeper the impact becomes. Patterns solidify, beliefs reshape, identity adjusts, and what once felt temporary becomes part of who you think you are. That is the real cost. Not a single moment, but a long-term transformation that happens without your consent, simply because you delayed your response. So understand this clearly. It is not these people alone that destroy your life. It is the time you spend seeing the pattern and choosing to remain inside it. Because time reinforces everything. It strengthens what you allow. It deepens what you tolerate. It normalizes what you should question. And once something becomes normal, it no longer feels urgent to change. That is why so many people stay. Not because they cannot leave, but because they have adapted so deeply that leaving feels unfamiliar. Now ask yourself, without softening the truth, how much of your current state is the result of what you have allowed to continue? And more importantly, how much longer are you willing to let this shape your life? What comes next is not about information, it is about decision. The awakening, regaining control. Now everything becomes clear, but clarity without movement is just another form of delay. What you do from this point forward determines whether this awareness becomes transformation or remains only recognition. You do not regain control by confronting others first. You regain control by reclaiming yourself. The first shift is internal. You begin by observing patterns without justifying them. You stop explaining away what you feel. If something consistently drains you, confuses you, or makes you question your own value, you no longer ignore it. You name it. You recognize it for what it is, without distortion. This alone changes your position. Because awareness without denial restores your perception. Then you establish something most people try to skip. Internal boundaries. Not external reactions, not immediate confrontations, but clear internal limits. You decide what you will no longer accept psychologically. You stop absorbing what does not belong to you. You stop carrying emotions that were projected onto you. This is where strength begins, not in control over others, but in control over what you allow to influence your mind. As this internal structure forms, your behavior starts to shift naturally. You speak with more clarity. You hesitate less. You feel less need to explain yourself unnecessarily. Not because you are trying to prove something, but because you are no longer operating from doubt. You are no longer seeking constant validation. This is crucial, because the moment you stop depending on external responses to confirm your value, you break one of the strongest mechanisms that kept you trapped. You begin to measure yourself by truth, not by reaction. And when that happens, influence loses its power. You become less reactive. You stop adjusting yourself to maintain comfort for others at the cost of your own alignment. You allow silence where explanation is no longer needed. You allow distance where proximity once distorted your clarity. This is not rejection, it is precision. And precision creates freedom. At this stage, you may notice something important. Some dynamics will change without effort. Others will resist. People who were comfortable with your previous version may react to your shift. They may question you, test you, or subtly try to pull you back into old patterns. This is where your awareness is tested. Because transformation is not only about seeing clearly, it is about remaining clear when pressure appears. You do not need to argue. You do not need to justify. You do not need to convince anyone. Your responsibility is not to manage how others respond. Your responsibility is to maintain alignment with what you now understand. And that requires discipline. Not emotional reaction, but conscious action. This is where you begin to separate what is truly yours from what was imposed on you. Your thoughts become clearer. Your decisions become firmer. Your presence becomes more stable. You feel different. Not because the world changed, but because your position within it did. And once you reach this point, something becomes undeniable. You are no longer the same person who allowed those patterns to define your experience. And what remains now is a single, unavoidable truth. You cannot go back to not knowing. The final blow. At this point, there is nothing left to explain. You have seen the pattern, you have understood the mechanism, and you have recognized the cost. What remains is something far more direct. Responsibility. Not for what others are, but for what you allow to remain. People do not enter your life by accident, but they do not stay without a reason. And most of the time, That reason is not found in them. It is found in what you have been willing to tolerate, justify, or ignore. This is where everything converges. You spent time questioning yourself, adjusting your behavior, carrying weight that was never yours. You tried to maintain harmony, to preserve connection, to avoid discomfort. But in doing so, you slowly moved away from your own center. And the longer you stayed, the more normal it became. Now you see it clearly. These people did not need to control you directly. They only needed your silence, your doubt, and your hesitation. That was enough to shape your experience, to influence your decisions, to redirect your path without force. And that is why this moment matters. Because once you see the truth, neutrality no longer exists. You either act in alignment with what you understand, or you consciously choose to remain where you are. There is no middle ground anymore. Understand this with precision. Toxic people do not destroy your life by their presence alone. They do it through the time you give them while knowing what they are doing to you. Time is the force that solidifies every pattern. It transforms influence into identity, and identity defines everything. So the real question is not who they are. The real question is who you decide to be from now on. Will you continue adapting to what weakens you, or will you start removing what distorts you? Will you keep seeking validation from those who diminish you, or will you stand firm in your own perception? Will you ignore what you feel, or will you finally respect it? There is no comfort in this decision, only truth. And truth demands action. Because once awareness becomes clear, inaction becomes a choice. And every choice shapes your life. So remember this: toxic people do not stay in your life by coincidence. They stay because something in you has allowed them to. And now that you have seen it, now that you understand it, now that you feel it with clarity, you no longer have the option of pretending that you do not know. From this moment forward, every step you take will either reinforce what weakens you or strengthen what you are becoming. Choose carefully.